It is Friday. We are back, and it is a wonderful, wonderful thing to see the conversation starting before we go. Um, Absolutely together on a Friday afternoon. And in answer to your question, Tony, absolutely yes. Uh, so we have a private chat as well in the
Yeah,
facility function.
yeah,
But it's so good to see everybody reading all the comments, getting to know each other, talking about pigs in poop and crocodiles, and being really friendly. I love it. I love it. I love it.
mm.
Welcome, Reverend Tony. My good sir, how are you?
I'm all right, Nick. I'm all right. Yes, it's a little concerning that there's talk about running crocodiles in Scotland, but hey, we shall see where that develops. But no, absolutely fine. Going out tonight, so I'm going to have a blast. Let the
Absolutely.
old hair down.
Yes, yes. We must always remember to let our hair down before we don't have any hair to let down. As I sit here looking at my hairline, realizing the amount of inches that have risen in highness, it's got nothing to do with the way I rise my eyebrows because the forehead stays
Yeah.
in the same place. So we do have to let our hair down whilst we've got it, indeed. But it's
We
so good
do.
to be back on a Friday afternoon with you, my friend, streaming live on Facebook and YouTube. Isn't this
Yeah.
exciting? And
It
of
is.
course, being joined by friends and family, all of the same ilk, watching both people that we know, people that are stumbling in for the first time. It is an absolute pleasure. Today we are here, of course, Spiritline, the Two Revs, to chat about spiritual things and anything you want to, really, because philosophy is as the same as the ISA, a broad church, welcoming in ideas, thoughts, and questions that everything really touches philosophy on the grand scheme of things, doesn't it, Tony?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's the important thing to start a conversation. Only by starting a conversation can you explore ideas, hear new ideas and new thoughts. There's no right or wrong answer here. Absolutely
Yeah,
no right or wrong answer. There's just debate, and as long as it's done respectfully and calmly, go for it. Go for it.
absolutely.
And of course, we must acknowledge the people who are stumbling across us sometime in the future. That is not the 27th of
Yes,
October, because it might not be
exactly.
for them.
You know what? You're absolutely right, and I think sometimes we get I can see the comments getting bluer as the moment goes by. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Sometimes even we forget, especially with so many wonderful people chatting in the comments right now, that the conversation will continue both, on Facebook and YouTube in the chat comments, but at other times, that stumble across, as you say, absolutely right. People do stumble across things and just get involved and leave comments at a later date. We must also acknowledge those individuals too. But do you
Cool.
know what? I think we should acknowledge the individuals that are here right now too,
Mm,
before hair on chin. Yes, I haven't
mm.
shaved. Um, you know, interestingly enough, even though I don't take after my dad for the top half, the chin I do. Dad had dark hair with a ginger beard that turned white. I have what could only be described as some kind of blondness on my head. Um, but I also have a ginger beard too, but it is already turning white. I'm not even
A
5 yet.
24,
Yeah.
turning white at 24.
Exactly. Exactly.
Ah,
Thank you for getting the numbers the wrong way round and a little bit backwards. This is appreciated.
nobody knows.
Not feeling. Not feeling anything about age at all right now, am I? So let's say hello to our lovely, lovely friends. Starting, of course, who was earlier than us, but not as early as usual.
Mm.
Good morning to Dawny, and I would also, or good afternoon rather, to Dawny. I'd also like to say good afternoon to someone who will be watching in the background with her. Hello to Lynn, who is tuning in with Dawny. I heard that you listen, so I thought I'd say hello as well.
And we have Kaza in the house, Kaza and a crocodile.
Kazza and the crocodile are in the house. That's a nursery rhyme starting there.
Yeah.
Good afternoon to Christine. Hey, how are you, darling? Good to see you. Then, of course, there was the conversation about the crocodiles,
Yeah.
swiftly followed in by.
Mario. Hello, Mario, my friend. I hope you're well, sir.
And we have a Facebook user. I'm not entirely sure who you are, but let us know. You can also, I don't know whether I've got the banner up there for that one. No, but you can actually go to streamyard.com/Facebook, and it will allow you to have your name on the screen if that is something that you so wish. And I've just lost
Indeed.
my place, but there we go.
It's,
Back on track now.
yes, Unison Tony. Not me, obviously. To the one.
To the Tony, to the Tony,
To the Tony.
to the Tony, and of course all the way from Offensay, the lovely Sherry Ann. Good to see you.
Always lovely to see you. And you, Mama B, who is in the house with Kaza.
Absolutely. Lisa, my darling Lisa, who did a really, really wonderful, wonderful costume of Little Red Riding Hood. Last, everyone was dressed up amazingly. Eunice was wearing this particularly figure-hugging and beautiful hooded gown. Lisa was dressed up as Little Red Riding Hood with a basket of lemons. Mum had a lovely hat on, and everyone just dressed up amazingly, amazingly well. It was beautiful to see because, of course, last night was our Halloween service. You see, so everyone dressed up
Wonderful.
wonderfully. Did us all proud. Yeah.
I know nothing about naughty chats.
No, definitely not. Angela Bryan is in the house.
She is indeed. Hello. Where are we next? Lorraine Clark. I've got a few services coming up with you. Really looking forward to it, Lorraine.
Excellent stuff. And Krish
Yeah.
Pillay, all the way from South Africa. Good to see you, my lovely, lovely friend.
Yes, and Suzanne, hello. Lovely to see you joining us today.
Fabulous stuff. And Gail, good to see you, my love. Gail used to come to Little Port and has started again. And we're gonna get Gail on the platform at some point, aren't we, Gail?
Is that a threat or a promise? Hi, Hameen.
Hi, good to see you. Perfect, of course. Facebook user from earlier, Trace. Good to see you, Dale.
Hi, Paul. Hope you're both doing well up there, down there, wherever. I'm not sure.
Careful. This goes back to what they were saying about naughty chats.
Yeah, it is.
Louise Johnson, good to see you and good evening.
And I think we
I
are up to
think
date.
we've caught up. Yes, we are. And me, of course, is so we've got two coming in from South Africa today. It's excellent stuff. It's a very international flavour, ranging from Rotherham to Little Port, Scotland to France to South Africa, and of course a number of people from the Fens and the Midlands too, which is wonderful. It's lovely to have a good range of people joining in and joining the conversation. But here's the thing, my friends, it's your conversation. So you need to lead us
Absolutely.
down that garden path of spiritual contact and content. You need to tell us what you want to talk about. You need to ask those questions. Surrey as well. You know, I mustn't. I did north. I did middle. I did east. I didn't do Surrey. So Surrey is another one.
Mhm.
Locazione. But yes, it's your conversation. It's your time to talk about whatever you want to talk about. We have our conversations beforehand, and we have a rough idea of where it might end up going. We do though, don't we, Tony? They always give us a
Yeah,
clue, don't?
they do. They do. It struck me when we were talking about locations, as we were just a second ago. If we rented a room, or if I came down to Littleport and we went into the village hall, we wouldn't get all these people coming to have a chat. This is
No,
incredible, you know.
it is. It is. I mean, let's face it. The online world is pretty much how we met anyway. You know,
Yeah,
I remember the first time we physically met. It was so weird because it took us 5 minutes to realize we'd never actually met before.
yeah, yeah. You got out the car, and I got out the car with Jean and Michael, and we all had a big hug and started chatting. And we're like, oh my lord, this is the first time we've actually physically been in the same space. It's
Yes.
crazy.
And I think that
But
is the
no,
beauty of online, isn't it?
it is, it is, and I mean, there's nothing like being in a congregation and having a service of worship and everything else face to face. But this way, there's room for both. There's room for both. And the people who say, "Oh no, no, online's not true mediumship," I'm sorry, it is. It is, and it can be just as meaningful having a worship and a service via the internet because not everybody can get out of the house. Not everybody goes out in the dark nights, in the cold, in the damp, and in the wet. So we have to
Yeah,
cater for everybody.
absolutely. I totally agree. And
Yeah, I think your
uh,
mum needs to raise her question slightly. I will be joining you. Yes, I no.
Can I say- Oops.
You're looking
But
for the
yeah,
J. Yeah, it's next to the H.
yes. Yeah, very good point. Susan found us
Yeah.
both online in 2020 because we didn't have the option of being in a room together. Um, uh, Speaking of online friends, hello Justine. We obviously met online. Justine Molyneux, welcome to the show. And yeah, there was a time and a point where we couldn't meet together, and that brought a lot of spiritual people together. But one of the things that I find really, really quite funny, frustrating, annoying, and counter to how the spirit world works is when we say, "Oh, you can't do it online. You can't do it when you're not in the same room together." Hello, our friends and loved ones in the world of spirit are not physically in the same room together with us. They have that online function where they're able to communicate through the airwaves, through the ether, through the interpenetrating wall of the universe from that world to this one. Ours is easy. You click a couple of buttons. They have to think about it.
Yeah.
So, I'll be honest with you, it was weird because I had mostly been working platform. The weirdest thing was not about whether I'd be able to connect with spirit for a person sitting halfway around the world over the internet. The weirdest thing for me was doing it sitting down.
Yeah, yeah.
Just
I like to stand up to work. It just
yeah,
That's how I was trained. That's how it works for me. I move with the energy. So sitting still, you can see my hands move, my body moves because I follow the energy. But Donny, I have to disagree slightly. If we're talking about what Mama Brown was talking about, then yes, it works better in the same room. But working with spirit it works for me as well like this.
Yeah. I think probably what Dawny's thinking and feeling is exactly that. We do have a stronger personal connection with people when they're in the room, but we must remember that that is actually a psychic link, and a psychic level link that we all have with each other naturally. It's looking at the laughs, she probably was talking about what Mama B was talking about. But yeah, that feeling of connection feels and is perceived stronger perhaps when you're next to each other. But when, like you said, when you don't have that option, you it's better to have that than nothing, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
But
That's why
yeah,
it
I mean,
was so important. Sorry,
no, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think for me, it's that's why it was so important when COVID hit for me to keep going live. It's because I was getting a lot of private messages of people saying, I'm desperate, I'm so isolated, and I thought, I've got to do something. So we went live, and then you went online with the church, with Little Port Christian Spiritualists, and the rest, as we say, is history. And yeah,
Yes,
it's been amazing.
absolutely. And hello to Neil Payne joining us as well. Good to see you, my friend. Pleasure as I've started bookmarking a
I've
few
just
good
seen
questions.
I was going back because the comments
Um,
are starting to move, so I'm starting to miss a couple of things.
yeah.
So I'm not saying
Um,
stop talking. It's absolutely fine. Keep messaging.
keep
We'll catch
going, keep
up.
going. We've got to scroll. Um, Susan says I can't remember if it was John Ennis or you that did my first message. I can confirm that it was John Ennis because it was on the title sequence for a long time for the Little Port Church um, online thing. And yes, it was John Ennis because it was on the imagery. It was the picture that I used of John and
Mm,
yourself, myself, for the online lives, like when you came on and served. And in actual fact, it was indeed right here in the Boudoir Del Brown. Um, Chateau del Nick, Boudoir Del Brown became the locazione of Little
it
Port
did.
Spiritual Church
It
for a
did.
good couple of years there. And you know, it it was an absolute pleasure to welcome people into my home, really. Um,
Mm,
and as Sherry would say, it certainly opened up Cherry's world. Cherry lives in France. There aren't that many churches, if at all, any in that environment, in that country. And certainly it would be French speaking. And although Sherry can hold her own when it comes to au français, to speak in one's native tongue, to hear things in one's native tongue, makes it that much more of a connection and an easier flow.
mm,
Um, and so, you know, people like Cherry, for example, would not have been able to connect in the way that she has done with so many friends and meet new friends. Um, as Dawny says, online is an amazing way to make new friends. If it wasn't for online, I would never have met Nick, Mama Bean, or got to know Kaza. Absolutely, you know, and good point there. I thought Zoom came at the right time during COVID. It really, really did. And where, you know, and I'm not bashing other ways of life at all. Even the church, there not every church went online, but enough went online to support the spiritual and spiritualist community. But a lot of other ways of life didn't catch on as quickly as the spiritualists did on that one from what I saw at the time,
no,
which I thought was,
mm.
you know, amazing, really, because it did open us up, didn't it?
It did. It did. I did see a few of the Anglican churches go online on our local news. It went around a few in Sheffield and the surrounding areas. But there were only a handful where I think almost every region had at least a few spiritualist churches that were doing some sort of online services.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's been a boom, and it's something I think I will always keep doing. I've just scheduled my first solo live for a while for Monday, um, and it's something I don't think I would be comfortable giving up, because it's a lovely way of reaching people who otherwise, like you say, would be quite isolated.
absolutely.
And we have got quite a few comments coming in, which is brilliant, and questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've just spotted Dawney's and I've just seen it turn blue. So I know you've got it.
Yeah,
So yeah,
financial, those that are housebound, those that live miles from other people, it really did make a difference. And, this is one of the reasons why we carried on. We didn't carry on broadcasting um, at Littleport because, oh, it's a thing and it's a fad. It's because we picked up people that didn't live locally and we didn't want to lose them as friends and as members of the church. Like, for instance, with Susan, with Kazza, with Dawny. I know Dawny comes from time to time, but it's still a trek. But Kaz, Dawny, Cherry, Susan, who we've been together since COVID, and all that support that the churches got from those people, that deserved something. So to
yeah,
continue that facility and that function, I think was really quite important.
it was. And Thundersley down London way, Essex, they've kept online as well, because again they've got a whole community of people now virtually attending church, and they said it's just not fair to cut it off if they want to still continue. So they have two mediums, one in
Yeah,
church and one online, and it's wonderful. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Anyway, we
absolutely. I
better get
think if
back
we
to
had,
some of
yeah,
the
I'm going
yeah.
to come to that because it ties in. Amin says, I
Mm,
did my first online demonstration a few weeks ago with Bold Street Spiritualist Church, and it was amazing. Due to it being a school night, the convenience of the service allowed so many people to be relaxed and comfortable. Spirit was just flowing incredibly. So, yes, I agree, online can have amazing benefits. Absolutely right. Completely agree. And that ties nicely in with what Dawny has asked. Do you think spiritualism has become more popular and accepted because of how it was handled during COVID with the online making it available to everyone? Thoughts, Reverend?
I think it's made it accessible. Whether that's more popular or accepted, I don't know. I think it's become more accessible. So I think, yes, by default, it will become more accepted because more people can dip in and have a look and think, oh, not for me, which is easier to do virtually than in person. So I think it's very important for people to try, and it may encourage people to go into churches. In fact, I know of a few people who've said, are there any churches around me? Because I think I would like to go and try a physical service as well as watch the online ones. We've had a couple on here, Nick. Mr.
Yeah.
Carlton, if he's on, has asked about their local churches
Yeah.
with the hope of going one day. So yes, I do think and that's the thing with our way of life, and particularly the ISA. We are for everyone, capital letters, like Dawney's done, because
Yeah.
we are for everyone. Everyone is welcome and everybody is entitled to watch. Keep respectful, keep kind, and we'll rub along nicely together.
Absolutely. And yeah, I agree, but for other reasons in addition to that. Certainly when I came into this way of life, certainly in the local area, there was a lot of hassle, a lot of trouble, and I know we certainly weren't on our own in that school because of the way a spiritualist service is viewed, the way a spiritualist service is purported to be conducted, and what they claim we do. And I think there was a lot of mystique and mystery and also fear about what actually went on. I mean, I was quite disappointed when I walked into the church and found that there wasn't any naked dancing or anything like that. But you know, I had other groups that I could go to that did that. But that might be the funny side of it. But there was a lot of really negative um, falsities about what went in a spiritualist church, and so people would be afraid to go. But it being online, people can actually see what goes on. People can see what it is that we actually do, see that it's not that massively different to things that they would know, and that the mediumship is done in a positive, affirming, uplifting, inclusive way. And I think those that were against us just for the sake of being against us would have not been happy per se that we were so blunt and obvious and open, and that people could now see, because they hadn't got the excuses and the blame of, oh, they do this, they do that. Well, actually, I know that they don't. You haven't been in one of those churches, have you? Well, no, I actually saw it online the other day. But I might do. I might go in there now because I can see what it is that they do. I can see it's not terrorizing. I can see it's not, you know, cult like. I can see it's not naked people dancing around a pole in the middle of the hall, and all rubbish like that was painted for us. So we have become naturally more open, and people can see what we do, how we work, how it runs, what goes on. And so a lot of the detritus that was said about us pre-COVID has dropped by the wayside, because you can just turn around and say, well, hang on a minute, look on YouTube, look on Facebook. They don't do that. And I think that was a big help, all on its own, because it wasn't just one or two videos filtering around the internet. It was everywhere.
Yes, it was.
So,
and that is important. Again, it's the exposure. It's about getting it out there and people seeing the truth for themselves, and that is very, very important. Very important.
Definitely agree. Definitely agree. And I think everybody at home does too.
Yes.
You know, very good tie-in. Do people feel more comfortable watching from home? I think some do, especially when they're not sure, when there's that uncertainty. Even Eddie, you know, I love how I can sit in my boxer shorts and just be dressed from the waist up on Zoom. You know, you'd be more than allowed to be like that in Littleport, in spite of what I've just said about dancing around naked. If you want to come in your boxer shorts, we've actually got one lad who got told off last week. He's my cousin. And someone turned round to him and said, why are you coming in wearing long trousers this week? You're normally in shorts. We nearly didn't recognise you. And he said, well, it is getting kind of cold. But everyone is so informal, and there's no dress code. You can wear what you want. Obviously, certain things should be, you know, covered for decorum. But, you know, people turn up in shorts and T-shirt, and no one ever gets a funny look as if to say, you can't turn up to church dressed like that. Because that's not spiritualism. You come as you are.
You're welcome. I mean, there's a lot of hoo-ha about mediums in some churches about, oh, you must wear a shirt and tie and a jacket and trousers, and he's back in his shorts this week. Is it a bit warmer now, love? But yeah, for me, as long as somebody's working truly with spirit and is working in a respectful way for spirit and for the congregation, wear what you want. Wear what you want. You know,
Absolutely.
as long as it's clean and tidy. I'm not a shirt and tie. No.
Yeah, absolutely. As Susan, Yeah, it's
Exactly.
absolutely right. They can slip away unnoticed. Contrary to popular belief, I don't sit there with a list of names popping up every time someone comes in online on a Thursday. I do get a list of how many people are viewing on what channel. I do get a list of names on the screen that says who's reacted with a reaction icon on Facebook, like a love or a like or that kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, but other than that, you are anonymous unless you comment. You are anonymous unless you interact. So to be able to, it's like sneaking in the back row without sneaking in the back row.
Yeah, it's much harder to get up and physically walk out of somewhere than to just
Yeah.
think, oh no, this is making me uncomfortable. Click the X button in the top right hand corner.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? No one gets offended. You know, I've had people that have, and I'm sure you're the same, and I'm sure everyone who's been involved with the church has been the same. I've had people that have kind of hung around the front door, looking in gingerly to see if that pole is in the middle of the hall or if the fire is being stoked. Um, and
If
you
the
know,
chairs are floating around the
the
ceiling,
chairs are floating around the ceiling, that kind of thing. And you know, it's wonderful because once upon a time it would just be one or two people that'd say, you know, come in, you know, especially during the service. That whole, you know, the chair standing there, drawing attention to them. To be fair, it's like, come in, you're fine. But now there's such a gathering outside the front of the church. Um, Before the service, everyone's oh yeah, come on over, go and see Linda, she'll sell you a raffle ticket, and the kitchen's over there, and everyone does it, and that is special, isn't it?
it is. It is. It's lovely. It's lovely to just have that sense of community. Absolutely
Absolutely.
wonderful. I think I've only been in one, maybe two spiritualist churches where I've walked in and thought, energy's a bit off in here.
Yeah,
Everywhere
yeah,
I've been, it's been so warm and welcoming.
yeah. And that, I think, is what sets us as a way of life apart,
That
right
there,
across the. Yeah,
that
we are a
there.
family. We support and help people to develop. We do not judge. We are human and care. Amen.
Amen to that.
Amen. Indeed. Slightly on a more pertinent topic, Lisa
Ooh.
has said, with the current season of Ghoulies and Ghosties upon us, have either of you ever had contact with a haunted house or unfriendly spirit? Just interested. Tony.
Yes, yes, yes to both because it's. I've been in a house where I've been in a few houses actually where there's been a resident who is less than physical. One in particular I remember was a lady contacted me and said her young child was awake until 3 and 4 in the morning, chatting away, and would I come and see what was going on because he was having full blown conversations with somebody and it was spooking her out a little bit. And as I walked through the door, I was greeted. She asked me if I wanted a drink, and I said, "Well, before yes, I would love a cup of coffee, but before you go and make a cup of coffee, I just want to reassure you there is nothing untoward in this property. It feels loving, it feels warm, it feels very family orientated." So she made me a cup of coffee, and we chatted about what was going on and for how long. And I went for a walk around the flat, and I thought, it was a gentleman who had lived in a house on that land before it was converted to flats. And he'd stayed around for his family and then just got stuck. And
Yeah,
a family had moved into the property and they had a child and he was ecstatic. And of course, no sense of time. So was just playing with the child. And I said, look, that's fine. Do you want me to ask him to leave? No, it doesn't do any harm. Just when little one's in bed, I want him to leave him alone. So that's what I said. You know,
Yeah.
once he's had a bath and he's had his story time and he's in his bed, can you leave him? She's happy to play for you to play with him while he's up, but when he goes to bed, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realise, and yes, not had a problem since, and that was about it was
Yeah.
before COVID, so yeah. And I have had a
Yeah.
really unfriendly experience as well, and that really wasn't nice. And it was just somebody thumbing their nose at their loved one down here and saying, I can still get to you if I want to, and I wasn't having that. So yeah,
Yeah.
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 How about you,
Absolutely.
Nick?
Well, I've got to say, Ruth did say mine, haha, or haha, mine. I've been in a number of places, and I did go into Ruth's house. I won't say it's how I met her because I met her because I was born because we're related. But I've had a number of locations, and I think there's a real theme here. And you hit the nose with the word stuck. We were talking obviously about the view of spiritualist churches and the view of other ways of life. It is the view of many other ways of life that there is a hell. And so people can be fearful of that concept, and people tend to get stuck because they're afraid what comes next. They're afraid that they weren't
Mm,
good enough. They're afraid that they weren't perfect enough. Are afraid that they've done something that would be considered bad, and so they don't move forward. And so they do. You're absolutely right. Get stuck. I think the best example that ties in with Lisa's question was a couple of years ago now, probably, or maybe even last year or the year before. Definitely not recent, but close. I've lived in Littleport since I was 15, which is 30 years now. So I'm now officially a resident of 5 years. But I've lived in Littleport since I was 15, and I used to walk to and from the shop down the road that joins what was is mum's road to the main street. And every time I used to walk back, there was this house on the corner. It was a block of flats, and there was this painted stained glass window looking very much like that house from that movie. Um, and there was always someone staring out of that window at me, and it gave me the absolute creeps. Gotta say though, couple of years ago, this particular incident, I was invited to go there because there was something going on, bumps and grinds and spooks. And of course, I did my usual spiel of walking in and sensing it. And it was a bit cold and it was a little bit uncertain, but there was nothing evil or negative. And I walked in and I said, right, okay, just so you know, there is no such things as, hauntings that are going to be absolutely pure evil. It's usually someone that's grumpy, and the likelihood of lights flashing and tables floating is minimal. And as I stood in the kitchen doorway saying that, the bathroom light started flickering. And I just stood there, and I just wanted to either find a hole and crawl into it or make a quick exit, because I'm like, this is going to be that one in a million. This is going to be that one in a million.
mm,
And I was getting really, really nervous. I went into the bathroom, and I kid you not, it was like walking into a Hitchcock movie. There was the shower curtain all the way round the shower. The light was still flickering, and I was absolutely myself. And I pulled the door to one side, and there was this spirit person stood behind it, literally with his finger in the light, saying, "Gotcha." And he was naughty, he was mischievous, but he had got stuck. I deliberately turned the power off that light just so that he couldn't do it anymore. Um, I went back into the kitchen and we had a chat. And it turned out that he'd been accused of certain things that weren't true. He was afraid. He was lost. He was worried. And he was scared of what was coming next because he thought he was in trouble. And I just said, look, that's not the case. You'll be loved. You'll be wanted. You'll be respected. And I asked my guides and helpers to bring someone forward that would be willing to help him move forward. And his wife came through and basically slapped him around the head and said, "Been telling you for ages, you blooming idiot. Get your ass over here. We're having a whale of time."
Yeah.
And he did. He's been seen me a couple of times since. He's been into that room, but the room changed. And, there was literally the reputation of that flat. People wouldn't stay there for more than 3 months. The person
Yeah.
who I went there to see those years ago is still there. And
Yeah.
it's all about misunderstanding and people needing to feel connection and love and compassion.
Yeah.
Um,
I just want to pick up on Dawney's point. Do you need any special training to do a house clearance, or do you just go in as a normal medium? I've had no special training at all. I go in, I talk to them like you would if you were given a message. You just basically there's normally a few things going on. They either just want to be acknowledged, they just want you to say hello, or they're stuck and they're frustrated. That's when things tend, like Nick said, to get a little bit hinky because they get frustrated, so they get a little bit naughty and a little bit mischievous is the word I was searching my brain for there, and it wasn't happening. But and 9 times out of 10, if you just say, look, it's not your home now, it's these people, they live here, you must respect them, job's a good one. And
yeah,
if they want to move on, you can ask, like Nick did, for one of their loved ones to step forward to come and talk to them and to help them. But yeah, that's how I do it. And so far, touch wood, it's not. I've never had anybody come back to me and said it's not worked. We've come back. Actually, no, that's not true. They have. I've had a couple of people who've said they're back and I don't know what to do about it and things. But when you talk to them, you find out that they've either been dabbling themselves and they've opened up and they've had communication either in person through tarot cards, through spirit board, Ouija board, whatever you want to call it, and they don't know how to close down. So it leaves that, and you allow one tiny little speck of light to be still there when you shut down, and they're in. They're in like Flynn.
absolutely.
And Chris, absolutely. Understanding, love, and compassion, that's all they need. Understanding, love, and compassion, and you will be able to sort 99.9% of any issues that are brought to you.
Absolutely. We've had a comment and a question from Justine that I really, really think is the whole point of us being here as spiritualists and coming together. And, I think that it's something everyone who is involved in this way of life will have had touched upon, thought about, dealt with, and I just want to come to it. Do you know how I can begin to open up a conversation with my dying mum, who is a Catholic, about the infinity, that the soul never dies, and for her to believe that she will still be able to come close to me and communicate in the afterlife? I think she would be less afraid of dying. And do not apologize for the depth of that.
Absolutely not.
She did come in with a follow-up, and when is the time right? I think the time is whenever it feels right for me. I'm going to switch back, obviously, to the main question. I've got to say, you are at an advantage when it comes to spiritualism when you are talking of Catholicism. And I think, once again, it comes back to what we were saying about open door policy and seeing what goes on. There are many different flavors of Christianity. For example, in the Church of England, which is Anglican, which is, one particular view of the Christian teaching, that that particular church professes that we are dead in the ground until we are summoned again, for the end of times, that we don't have an afterlife, which is why there is so many differences of opinion between spiritualism and Christianity on that scale of things. Catholicism has two key factors. In spite of what anyone might think about the church as an organization, the belief of that church is, so tied with spiritualism and spirituality that Catholicism says that you cannot achieve salvation through the acceptance of Jesus as Lord and Savior alone. It must be in tandem with good works, which is, be good, be kind, be nice, personal responsibility, the brotherhood of man. So there is that connection there, because it's not just about saying, I believe this, it's about living it, which is a spiritualist tie in. The other thing is the existence of heaven is a present thing, as opposed to the Church of England view that it's a future time. Catholicism is very much a place of understanding that heaven is a real and tangible place. When it comes to two, what would be perceived as polar opposites coming together, you have to start with connection. You have to start with that which is accepted as an agreement, and build on that growth from there. So those are two very real substantive connections to the spirit world. What I do know is that everyone with faith at some points questions their faith. And it's at that point in our life that we do question it, question what's coming next. All I can say to you, Justine, is reminder of all of the good works, reminder of the love and compassion that she has attributed in her physical life that will be those. I always remember a film I watched as a kid. There was this bloke who had passed, and he was stood somewhere. It was a black and white film, and there was these scales, and there were little white balls being put on the scale versus little black balls, and it was balancing and balancing, and they were watching his life back. And he did one act of kindness to a stranger, and he was worried because he'd got 2 or 3 white balls and a lot of black balls, and the black ball side was heavy. And they took out this one golden ball for this one beautiful thing that he did, and they placed it with the white balls, and it completely outweighed all of the black balls. And it was such a beautiful moment that I will always remember. One simple act of kindness outweighs any mistake, because you choose to be kind. You choose to be kind. Sometimes we don't choose our words or our actions properly, and so we make mistakes. That is different to choosing to be unkind or choosing to be harsh. We choose to be kind every single time. And you might say, well, no, it's just the natural thing. No, you've chosen to smile to a stranger. You've chosen to give words of upliftment to someone's day. You choose acts of kindness. Those are the good works that Catholicism talks about, among many other things. So that's your starting point. And from there, you talk about, the whole idea that if you want to tailor it to the Catholic view, the whole idea that Jesus spoke about, just be kind. My mate Joshua Carpenter, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Judge nobody, because nobody can be the judge. Treat people with love and compassion and kindness. That's what we believe as spiritualists, regardless of any dogma or doctrine. So that is your starting point, and build it from there. You might disagree on some things, but as Tony said right when we kicked off, it's not about what we agree on or disagree on. It's about how you deal with that disagreement. And if you can be respectful of each other's views, she will know, she will notice. And of course, she will get the absolute truth based on all of our views when that time sadly comes. And she will know because of what you have told her and the assurances and the reassurances that you have given her. She will see that truth and say, oh my word, Justine was right. It's good news. I'm coming back to give you a slap round the ear for even suggesting that I might doubt it, because of course everyone's heaven is unique and special, and we cannot perceive its true form, whether we're spiritualist, Christian, Judaism, Muslim, Buddhism. We all have an idea of what it looks like, but we will find out its truest form when we get there. And she will have had a fuller picture by you sharing your truth with her. And I know, because down in London, where I used to help out with another organization, there are a lot of spiritualist churches around a lot of Catholic churches, and those who were Catholic would go to mass on a Sunday morning and the spiritualist church on a Sunday evening. A lot of people in the Catholic faith were very interested in spiritualism. So it may not be as strange or weird or distant as you might perceive it to be. So just talk, discuss, debate, but start with the bits that connect us. Good works, compassion, kindness, and build it up from there is my thought, and I know Tony will want to add to that.
Yeah, sorry. Suffering
Right.
with my chest, so I keep wanting to cough.
Bad timing to stop there as you're about to put a glug in.
Yeah. What I would say, Justine, is I watched somebody on YouTube called Caitlin Doherty. She's an American lady who is a funeral director, and she has a not-for-profit called the Order of the Good Death. And her tenet is, it's your life, it's your death, and the best way to resolve anything like this is to talk. And whilst what you say is important, the fact that you're talking about it is more important. To have that conversation and say, Mum, I know you're concerned about what's coming, but I honestly believe that, like the Catholic faith says, heaven is a tangible place, and we go there and we will meet again. We will have conversations. We will be around each other. It's a time of grief. We were just talking about before we come on that pain of loss is the price you pay for having loved and known people. But the most important thing for me is conversation. I'm in a similar situation myself. Both my parents are terminal with different things, but I want that conversation. We had a conversation about funerals, and they had one of these plans where everything's paid for and it's done up front and everything was booked. And my mum said, wish I'd known about these direct cremation things. I'd love that. It saves all the hassle for you and them left behind. And I said, Mum, if that's what you want, talk to the funeral directors, because I don't want to sit in the chapel at a crematorium having songs and hymns and prayers and things, knowing that's not what you want. And that dialogue is what's important. It may be difficult to start with, but I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to talk about how you feel about it, what your views are on it. Accept your mum's views will be different to yours, possibly. We don't know. But it's how you meet somewhere in the middle that's important. And as for the timing, there's only you and your mum know when the time's right, my love.
Yeah.
I would say, depending on prognosis, sooner rather than later. But please keep in touch. Let us know how things are going, my darling.
Yeah.
And if you need anything else, we are here, whether it's Friday afternoon or not. We're on Messenger. Just drop us a message if you need to talk, my darling.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think this is a lesson to all of us, isn't it? There was one thing that I was once told, and I think we all make this mistake. We see life as being this prolonged thing that goes on and on, and it's not until we get that moment of, oh, that time is coming, that we recognize that we should actually start having conversations. I'm often reminded at this time of a really, really sad and perhaps dark truth, but I think it's important we recognize it, that the first step to death of the physical being is birth. From the moment we are born, we are going to die as a physical being, and that we should not wait for when things get dark to talk about the physical death. We should be able to discuss these things in lighter moments, because you know what? It makes it easier when that shadow isn't hanging over us. And that we should make the most of every moment we have on this physical earth. It is a scary topic. It is a dark topic, but it's an inevitability. It's the one inevitability that we all share, and we should open up and talk about it when we are not worried about that shadow creeping over us, because
No.
that way we make the most of every single moment. We literally squeeze the life out of our physical existence and build more memories, more joys, because it's the happy memories that endure beyond grief. Grief will be there always, but it's the happy memories that subside the pain of it. It's the happy memories that bring us out of that dark shadow of grief. And so the more of those happy memories that we can build, the more honest we are about what we think and how we feel, the easier it is for us that are left behind, and the more comfortable it is actually for those that are going ahead to be able to look down and say they're going to be all right, and then they
Yeah.
can go on with their journey.
Yes. And the thing is, it it having those conversations, Justine, it sounds awful to say, but will make your mum's final days, months, year, I don't know, much more bearable, because she
Yes.
can express what's in her heart. She can express what she's feeling. She can say, I'm scared. My granddad did, and it was awful, but he could talk about it. I'm frightened of going to sleep. I might not wake up. You know, you can have those conversations. And in some strange way, for me, it is important to take ownership of it, because, like Nick's just said, it's inevitable. The moment we take our first breath, we're working our way down to our last. And to appreciate that and to take ownership of it and to say, well, I know what's coming. As a spiritualist, as a person of faith, whether you're spiritualist or not, to have that faith that there is something out there beyond the physical makes it much less scary. And
Yeah.
if you can articulate to your mum that you know she's going to come back, and you know she's going to be giving you messages through a medium at some point, that might take some of the burden off her. And
Yeah.
all this leads nicely through to Daniel's
Yes,
points as
it
well,
does, and I
which
will
is
also say, just to tie that one in a bow from my perspective, and what you are doing and the way you do it will be one of your golden balls on that
yeah,
scale.
it
It
will.
really,
It
really
will.
will. And
Absolutely.
we're here for you. You've got my direct messenger anyway, Justine. Do just shout as and when. And it does tie in beautifully to Daniel's comment. A famous friend of mine committed suicide this week. He had a checkered past of violence and fingers in the gangster scene. Do you think he will pass over easily, or will he need to make a change? I love how people go for that either or. It's the
Yeah,
either or that we go for. Tony, your thoughts?
he will. He will pass. He will pass like everybody else passes. the difference, well, not the difference, because we all have that opportunity to acknowledge our life, take ownership of it, take responsibility for it, to seek forgiveness is the wrong word, but to hands up, like you would if you were taken to see the headmaster, put your hands up and say, look, yeah, it was me that put the spider in Mrs. Draw. Sorry, it was rubbish. I didn't realize she'd be that scared. It's all about acknowledging. And if you've just said he did a lot of good in his later life, if he was truly, truly at the bottom of his soul, absolutely aware of what he'd done and had taken responsibility for it and was truly repentant, he'll not have a problem. If he wasn't quite repentant, but he was like, yeah, I was a bit of a bad lad, he will have the opportunity to work and to grow and to develop. And what happens in the afterlife for me, and what I've been shown by my team, is that your experience in the afterlife is completely down to you. It is down to you. It will be as happy, joyous, or as miserable and awful as you make it. Because if you do own up and take responsibility, then you're good to go. God is not cruel. God is not wanting to punish. God is wanting you to be the best version of you can be. And they will do everything they possibly can to help you to do that. And
Yes.
as soon as you draw your last breath, Daniel, or everybody watching, you are met. You are met by those who love you, whether you knew them this side of life or not. You are met by people who love you, who are invested in you, and you are taken to a place where you can be and acknowledge your life. And like Nick said, you'll have your balls on scales, and it'll be, one way or the other. But as long as you say, yeah, I know what that is, and I know what that is, I'm sorry, fine, absolutely fine. And just before I hand over to Nick, Eddie, it's good that you and your mum are talking about end of life. It really is. Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Very much agree with you there. And I very much agree with you, full stop, to be fair. And that comment right here says it all for me. He did a lot of good in later life. So he recognized the mistakes, and he didn't wait to put it right in the spirit world. He did it in this life. These are the golden spheres of heaviness that go on the scales, that counterbalance. If you make an effort to put right what once went wrong, that will be recognized. That will go for you. I know that when people, there are certain views in certain ways of life, that taking one's own life is a sin. Thankfully, the spirit world sees it in a way that it is more appropriate, that is a moment where you need the most support, the most help, the most comfort, and you are met by that help and that comfort because you are in pain. To be in a position like that, you've got to be in pain. And so spirit and the great spirit are not going to punish you for being in pain. They're going to try and comfort and help you. You'll be taken to one side. You'll be looked after. You'll probably have more people meet you to help you over than less, because of that desire of the spirit world to provide you comfort. And yes, exactly as Tony said, you will be shown the mistakes of your past, but if you've already seen and acknowledged them, you've got a head start on that process because you have actively been partaking in what Eddie just described as the incarnate spirit growth. We can grow here. We can develop here. That's the whole, frankly, bloody point of being here, is to grow, to develop, to become more than we actually are. And so therefore it is important, frankly, that we recognize that and start making a difference to our own mistakes, but recognizing why those mistakes happened, because spirit will know. If you chose or were fearful of your own existence, and that's why you did bad things, because you thought, if I don't get involved in this, I'm going to be in trouble. That's coercion, and once again, you're a victim, and spirit will recognize that. You'll still have to make good on the harm that you've done, but it sounds to me like this friend is very much already on that process. And regardless of how you cross or who you were, you will be met with love and compassion and shown a way of evolving in that world of spirit, as Tony has so concisely said. So I haven't got that much to add, except to say he's already on that path. He's already being looked after. He's already taking that step of growth, because he already did it here. I'm reminded of someone who contacted me prior to passing, because he knew that he was going to pass. He'd been diagnosed with a terminal illness, and he contacted me specifically because he wanted to know if he was going to hell. He wanted to know if he was going to be in trouble when he got upstairs. Oh, bless you. Take care. Kaz has got to go. We're not going to be much longer either. And thank you. Thank you for that, Kaz. He contacted me because he was afraid of what came next. And I said exactly what Tony's just said, of what everyone here has been discussing, that there is no judgment, and that he will be looked after. And you know what? Just like with the conversation that Justine wants to have with her mum, it was about making his last time on this earth more comfortable and less fearful, so that he could make the most of every moment that was here. And it is important that we recognize that we do not have the right to decide whether or not spirit punishes someone, because they don't. They want everyone to be the best, as Tony again said, the best we can possibly be. And if we can start making a route towards that in this earthly life, we will have a head start to how many, shiny shinies are on those scales, on who greets us, on what greets us, on what we do next. So live this life for every moment with joy and upliftment, because we will always find that love and compassion that we need from the world of spirit. And I have to say, Daniel, that friend certainly sounds like they already started that process long before the end of their physical life. And you know what? We are eternal spirit. We've got eternity to put right what once went wrong. So we've got plenty of time to make good.
One thing I will add, when I was doing my degree, we had a cancer nurse come in to talk to us, and she said her job in the hospice is to add life to days, not days to life. She said keeping somebody alive to be miserable and in pain is not good. To make them comfortable, happy, joyous, and fulfilled in the time they naturally have left is what's important. And that's how I live my life now. It's make it count, make it count. And Justine, if that means having a little bit of an uncomfortable conversation to start with.
Absolutely.
Gail, my aunt, terminal with cancer. The last few days, she was talking to her dad, my granddad, who passed to spirit before she was born. I felt spirit presence in the room, much peace and love and compassion. Spirit, I feel, have no judgment. Spirit are wise and compassionate and help on our path, both on earth and in the after. Amen. Amen. Yep.
Absolutely.
They will. Spirit know what we need. Spirit know what we need, and they will be there when you take your last breath. In fact, they'll be there before you take your last breath to prepare you, to help, and to be there for you and your loved ones that are around you that are going to be grieving for you. So, and I will look that book up, Eunice.
Yes, for those. It certainly sounds like it's worth a read, because if Tony's into it, this is Eunice and Tony, obviously. if Tony thinks it's good, it's probably going to be gripping. Um, so definitely people have a look at that. And you know what? For everyone who is fearful of the world of spirit and what follows next, don't be. Because I know from what I've been shown, as Tony has been shown, that the world of spirit gets the program. The world of spirit certainly understood the assignment, and the world of spirit will support and guide us. And it's interesting you should say before our last breath. I'm often reminded at these times the other side of the coin, those that believe nothing. My mate Andy, he was diagnosed with terminal cancer. He was absolutely non-believing of anything, and I'm reminded that his wife of the time turned to me and said, "I've just been talking to Andy, and he asked me to say he thinks you might be right because he's just been sitting talk to his mum in the corner of the room," and that gave
Did
him
they come for
comfort,
you?
not fear. It
They,
gave
they,
him
they come for
comfort.
you.
And
Just before
if you
we,
think of, as I say, if you think about it, what we do naturally do to people who are in pain is provide them comfort. That's not the animal nature of humanity. That's the spirit within. And that's exactly what the spirit without will do.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, just before we go, because I have to start getting ready to go out soon, Daniel's just put a question in that I would like to answer if possible. His granddad has Alzheimer's, he's forgetting a lot and seems to go back to being 16-ish. Will he be his aged self as he passes, or will he be his younger self? Energy has no age as such, Daniel. What happens when people come to a medium, if a spirit person comes to a medium? So when your granddad unfortunately takes his transition, if he comes to us, he will present himself in a way that you will recognize. So he will come as your granddad, and he will come as your granddad in your happy memories. So he will come at that age. If he was coming to his mum, if his mum was still alive, he might present as his younger self because that will be her happy memories of him. So for me, they come at an age that is meaningful to the recipient of the message they want to give. Um, I had one gentleman who presented himself three different ways to me. There were three people sat in a line. There was his sister, his daughter, and his granddaughter. And he presented himself in three different fashions for each of them because that meant something to them. So energy has no age. Energy has no age. So he will be himself, but when he presents himself to a medium to pass on a message, he will choose the appropriate outfit, if you like, to show them. What do
Yeah.
you think, Nick?
Um, all of what you have said, and the only thing I will add is something that I read to you a little while ago, because we talk about the religion, the philosophy, and the science of spiritualism. And you know what? There is one scientific principle that backs up everything you've just said and everything that you need to know about the world of spirit. The first law of the conservation of energy says that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, but can only change form. Age is a physical attribute. Age is a physical phenomena, a physical manifestation of this physical world. When we are in spirit, we are energy. We are our purest form. We are a substance that exists beyond time and space and age and pain and fear and hate. He will come back as the best part of himself, the memory, the love, the compassion, and the joy. And you will know him not just by the memories that he shares, but by the love that will just pour forth from that connection. And I also know that someone with Alzheimer's very often gets a head view of what's coming next and can see and hear and talk to those that have gone before. And I have to say that whenever someone has experienced that, they are protected on earth and in heaven. As Tony said, he will show himself as who he would be remembered by, but his true form is that of the energetic, interpenetrating form that is energy, an energy that is not a Duracell battery, is not a car battery or a mains plug, but an infinite, unconditionally beautiful form of energy that does not ever wax or wane, simply exists and will continue to exist. And you will know it by the way it makes you feel,
Yeah,
not whether it's got a high forehead or a low forehead or wrinkles or perfect skin. You will recognize that love, that compassion, because that is energy.
it is. It 99% of the time for me, it just feels like pure love, because the energy always starts to build around my heart whenever I'm working with spiritualism, with spirit. It starts to build around the heart, and that's the love of the energy coming through to be passed on. Oh, bless you. Justine's just said she'll show mum this discussion. Watch it with her. This means a lot, guys. And Daniel says, thank you both. He's a little teary. I am myself, actually. I'm feeling a little bit emotional. It's been quite a day
Yeah.
for me. And I'm feeling a little bit, oh, but
Yeah.
hey.
And I think we can finish on this, a very good point from a very worthy student. He may come through differently to different mediums as well, depending on the medium's memory bank. Someone's been understanding the assignment.
Yeah, yeah. They always use your term of reference. They always use what you know and understand to get a message across. But yeah,
So,
just know, Gail's comment, Justine, I think sums up for you what you need to know. That she knew it was her granddad with a beautiful message, and she knows he's no longer suffering. That's the thing for me. The physical suffering ends in that very moment that the physical life stops.
yeah.
So watch this back with your mum. I hope everything goes all right for you, my darling. I hope you get a message off your friend soon, Daniel. And just know they're fine. They're fine now in the physical life, your mum, Justine, and she will be fine when that time comes. She will be met by people she loves.
Amen. As are all, no matter the life they have lived. But just live a good one for yourself, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the end, because you've got to go out and I've got to get ready, because tomorrow I'm shutting everything off. I'm going to be completely disconnected from the universe. I'm going to have a day off, because I don't want to be reminded by any that I'm turning 45. Because it's my.
Sorry, there was a glitch there, Nick. Did you say because you're going to be 22?
I said I'm going to be fine. Sorry, it just doesn't seem to want to come through. So
No.
I'm going to have a rest tomorrow, because I've got lots of writing to finish as well. And then we're back with a workshop on Sunday called, interestingly enough, Connect and Accept. So you have a wonderful night tonight, Tony.
Thank you very much, my dear.
Everyone, have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Go forward with courage, strength, conviction, bravery, boldness, and love, and laughter too. But from myself, it's good night and God bless.
And it's good night from me, and happy birthday, Nick. Have a great one, my friend.
God bless you all. See you all soon. And may the peace of the Great Spirit go with you all. See you next week.